There's a certain romantic idea floating around, this notion that we need to bring American manufacturing back, as if the secret to national greatness lies in everyone's kid growing up to make ballpoint pens on an assembly line. Really? Let's be honest. Nobody wants that. People want to be influencers, app developers, or Bitcoin bros, not riveters. Factory work was never glamorous. It was just unionized enough in the 1950s to afford a home, a Buick. But those unions are mostly gone, and so are the pensions. Economist Fernand Braudel showed that great economies, Venice, Amsterdam, London, don't collapse when they lose manufacturing. They evolve. Trying to reverse that is like saying we need more pirates. Sure, it sounds cool until you remember pirates died of scurvy and gangrene. This isn't economic policy, it's nostalgia cosplay. And cosplay doesn't build an economy. Okay, so this show, this social media platform I'm talking about, is not primarily about politics. I realize politics touches everything. You see a particular person's name in the headline. I'm not really talking about him, not mentioning by name, but there is this idea in the ether. There's this huge message out there. And I do try to analyze messages. What's effective? What isn't? What's resonating? What isn't? Is there an internal logic to a message? And I've heard this my entire adult life, that the problem with America is we've let all the manufacturing leave. And if we could just bring manufacturing back. And the problem is, if you talk to serious economists across the spectrum, nobody believes this, as far as I can discern. Is there an occasional exception out there somewhere? Yes, but it is such an extreme, narrow selection group. And it's just not representative of mainstream economic thought, liberal economic thought, conservative economic thought, or libertarian economic thought. Adam Smith brought out the idea hundreds of years ago in The Wealth of Nations that countries should do what they do best. Bangladesh in the news today, they do a good job of making shirts. Do we want Americans to work for $1 or $2 a day to make a shirt? And do we want to have 190 million people in Bangladesh suddenly unemployed and all the instability that's going to create? There is the basic economic idea. Again, Adam Smith talked about this for years and years ago, hundreds of years ago. Do what you do best. What Americans do well is, besides eat a lot of junk food and become obese, what Americans do well is they design products. They're great innovators. They're great promoters. You look at a company like Apple, they do create a lot of wealth for American workers. It's true. The people actually assembling this are often in China and other places and are not making $80,000 a year in that factory, but they're making a pretty good living for the standards of their country. And what everyone seems to miss who is in favor of just bringing back more manufacturing is, if you do, I've seen estimates to build an iPhone anywhere from $3,500 to $6,000 if you had to use American workers. Now, how many of you really think that most Americans, much less other people in the world, are going to buy or pay $6,000 for an iPhone? Every legitimate economic forecasting I've seen says, okay, sales would essentially go to zero. So then what did we accomplish? The American workers are not going to have factory jobs if the product is selling, not at all, if there's zero demand for it. The people who did have jobs in China aren't going to have jobs anymore. So all you've done is create massive unemployment, and customers are not going to have new products. And those who do are going to see, forget the 3, 4, 5, 6% inflation everyone was all up in arms about a few years ago. We're going to be seeing 100, 200, 300, 400% inflation if every single thing Americans want to consume has to be built here. I'm using a couple of different ears. So these are the ear sets I have here. These were only like $30. If they were made in America, would I have two sets? Probably not, because they might be $300. Do I want my daughter in a factory making little notepads, making tape, making a shaver? This is a shaver. It says made in China. I never noticed that, but it does a good job. But do I want my daughter trudging to work every day, hunched over. No, I want my daughter to be a famous artist, a famous YouTube star, a lecturer, speaker, author. The very same things that many of you want your children to do. I want my daughter to use her full intellectual talents, capabilities, own businesses, build wealth, do things that make her happy. That may sound like I'm just projecting what I want for me. Maybe there's a little of that, but I want her to be happy. And yes, working in a factory job, getting a decent paycheck does make you happier than sitting home alone, unemployed, in a trailer, doing crystal meth or doing some other drug. I'll grant you that. It's a much happier existence, but very relative. I personally never met anyone who worked in a factory all day long and said, wow, it's the greatest job ever. It's so fun. It's so interesting. It's so intellectually stimulating. No, they might talk about, I like the stability. I like the pay. I like the benefits. I like that I've got health care. Back in the day, they might say, I like that I have a pension. But those days are gone. And I think as a message, somehow there's got to be either new messages put out there or better PR for this concept of the need to bring back manufacturing. Now, is there a possibility of manufacturing more sophisticated technologies here? Yes, but let's not forget, how do we actually define manufacturing? I think what I'm doing right here is manufacturing. I'm manufacturing ideas. I'm creating them in a digital format in the form of my videos, podcasts, and online courses. I'm in manufacturing. It doesn't sit on a store shelf the way a pen does. But you know what? The stuff I do, perhaps the stuff you do, didn't exist 40, 50, certainly 100 years ago either. I think we have to look at this from a broader perspective. And it really comes down to what can an individual human do to give value to the world? I know I give value to people in the world because 12 million student enrollments have shown up in my online courses. And many of those were paid people. I know I'm giving value. It's not because I went to a factory and I pressed something out and something made of metal or plastic sat on a shelf. And I don't think in any way it diminishes my career choice. And I think America needs to get over this idea that somehow it's bad or we should feel insecure about the fact that we really dominate in research, planning, and engineering, and consulting, and financing, and marketing, and media, and a million other things. And we're giving other people around the world to do things that, we were doing not that long ago, and everybody can win. So that's my analysis of this meta message that is floating out. It's getting a lot of attention these days in the United States of glorifying manufacturing and the need to bring it back. But it has been in and out of the political debate in the United States, certainly since I've been following politics since the 1970s. And the trend line is one way. It's not just the United States. You can look at a country like Germany, which really has a lot of power given to people who work in factories. And workers there actually have a stake in corporate governance. But still, the percentage of workers in the workplace working in manufacturing goes down every year, even in a country like Germany. But in the United States, it's going down, 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 down. Not dissimilar from what happened in agriculture. There certainly was a time 100 years ago when people said, we need more people in agriculture. I mean, there was a time when 97% of people were involved in agriculture. Now it's 1-2%. Do we really want to go back to the days when everybody had to be a subsistence farmer? I don't think so, because ultimately that is essentially the same argument that the people who want to bring back manufacturing to America are making. It's basically, let's go back to something like the world existed 100 years ago. Well, you can't go backwards.